I'm going to spend a lot of time talking about how we became a customer, first and foremost, of Juniper, before I talk about how we became a partner. And I'm just going to throw it right on the screen here. We only knew Cisco, and we threw it all away. Wow. So prior to, honestly, 2020, Granite Telecommunications was a Cisco-only shop. We have a 20-plus location data center network interconnected with waves across the country, all Cisco equipment. And we decided at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, why don't we look at something else? Why don't we find another different technology? And I think it was mentioned earlier, you never get fired for choosing Cisco, but you also never get promoted. Still working at Granite, even though we're in Juniper, so I have been promoted, so it worked. But we also went from, we had 150 CCNAs on staff, so a completely Cisco shop. So convincing our leadership that this is something that we can really move away from, that we promise we'll be able to deliver on, it was hard. So let's go on to the next slide here. Quick, what we are. We are Granite Telecommunications. We serve 85 of the Fortune 100 companies in the United States. We are on the EIS, Enterprise Information Systems contract for the federal government, so we're one of 8 providers that can sell into the federal government. We operate in many verticals, and the way we started doing business with Juniper many, many years ago was not through managed services, it wasn't through buying equipment, it was working with customers like you to deploy the gear. So we have a nationwide managed field services team that goes out, racks, stacks, wires, cables, everything for our customers. And that's the way we started doing business. And we've been doing that with Juniper for about half a decade. However, Granite, prior to, it's been not even 3 years today, never spent a dime with Juniper. So it was a huge decision to move from other technologies into this. Our focus is nationwide, multi-location customers. So what's the path? Like our friends from ServiceNow said earlier, we wanted more control over our own destiny, right? Going out and buying a box and putting it to a location just to service a customer, to give them our services, and then all of a sudden they become tied in with that vendor and they can just move away from us and they have that router there and away they go. We didn't like that. So we went on a multi-month, painstaking search for the right partner. And we found that partner 1 week before COVID hit. They literally were on location at our business 3 days before everything shut down. It was a Wednesday, and I think the whole world shut down on the Monday, or it was something like that. What we loved about that technology was it was tunnel-free. And Sudhir mentioned it earlier, which was almost 3 hours into the presentation before it was mentioned. So I was sitting there, I was like, I hope we're going to talk about SD-WAN a little bit before I get on stage. Was tunnel-free technology. We, at Granite, had customers with lots of locations, tens of thousands of locations that are bandwidth challenged. So they really need to get the best out of what they had from the circuits that they were available to them. Not everyone can call up and say, I want 1 gig diverse DIA circuits into my location because I want to run gaming conventions, I want to do digital signage, I want to bring in video to the location. Not everyone has that luxury. So providing a solution to folks and getting the best out of the bandwidth available was extremely important to us. So we found a company called 128 Technologies. Local company to Boston, obviously since been acquired by Juniper over the past 3 years. So we partnered with them because first and foremost, they were a software-only company. They didn't care about the hardware stack at the time. So we could go out, find our own hardware vendors, manufacture those devices exactly how we wanted for our customers, and then deliver it the way we wanted to deliver it. That partnership is now 3 years old. And we met that customer through a mutual, we met that company through a mutual customer of ours, who we now have done a full stack deployment. They purchased 128 prior to, and then they moved into Mist and Juniper stack, so it's a full stack solution, and that's how we met 128. We chose 128 technology and eventually Juniper because we recognized that they were the architecture and the right product for the future. That's from one of our technology leaders within the company, and we really stand by that today. So when you go from Cisco and you go, hey, we're gonna buy this box, and we're gonna put this software on it, and it's gonna work great. And again, our company only works with enterprise customers. So it's home, a lot of you are here, home names, everybody knows them. And our leadership was worried, okay, we're gonna put this box out there. We don't have that branding, we don't have physical hardware branding, of course. What are customers gonna think? 3 months into the deployment, our COO stopped us in the parking lot, the other gentleman and I that went out on this venture and said, hey, I haven't gotten one complaint from any customer about this change. I'm shocked that that happened. So since launch, we deployed over 20,000 Flex Edges. We do about 500 a week. The Flex Edges, that's our in-house name for the product. Significant savings. We actually saved about 50% off of our basic network interface devices that we're deploying, moving towards a custom Juniper solution with our own physical hardware versus buying Cisco ASR gear. And when Juniper came to look at 128 technologies, we actually participated in the acquisition process as a reference. So we were happy to say, the tunnel-free technology, all API-driven, zero trust, all of those reasons were real, we were using it, and we were happy with it. So we became a full-stack partner for Mist after the acquisition. Prior to that, all we were doing were these edges at the time. So this is what we call it. We call it the Granite Flex Edge platform. So on top of deploying just Juniper software, we also deploy what's called a hypervisor, which allows us to stack multiple software solutions. So if you want to utilize that single physical appliance that you have deployed and say, hey, I have this, I'm gonna run Juniper, that's great, but I also want to run this other monitoring software. I want to run this other virtual server because at my remote locations, I'm sick and tired of deploying a router, and then I'm deploying a server behind that. You can condense that all into one box with this UCPE approach to delivering services. Every circuit that we deploy today that touches our network, typically an Ethernet circuit, has one of these devices deployed. Obviously integrated 4G, 5G wireless backup, and you can run your own SBC on it as well if that's something that you're interested in doing. We deliver this as a service, so there's no, oh, sorry, I'm gonna skip that there. Gonna move to a case study. Very different than what we've talked about here today. This is a customer that went full stack Mist because they happened to buy the commodity internet circuits from Granite. So they were a 60 location customer. They were just moving into the US, European based. The challenge was their European counterparts were actually decoupling the network. So they needed to stand up a whole network in 90 days in the middle of a supply chain crisis. So what we did is, one, we said, well, we're gonna go Juniper because we have all your locations already up and running on a Juniper edge that we already have out there. So by the way, if we already have it out there, you don't have to pay for the physical appliance twice. So there's cost savings there. We worked, obviously there was a supply chain crisis, so we worked very closely with the Juniper account management team to find switches and APs that would fit the timeline. It wasn't about the technology there, it was about the timeline to getting it deployed. And this customer was a new team of folks, and they were actually unfamiliar that there was a supply chain crisis at the time in the switching and AP industry. obviously mostly in the switches. So we helped them, and that became our first full stack deployment of Mist solutions that we deployed. We've developed a whole run book, so when our technicians got on site, they'd get this big piece of paper and tell them everything to do. And that's terrible, so I'll talk about that in the next slide. So just real quick before I go here, I want to mention one thing. Day 0, day 1, day 2, I'm glad that we've seen it on a bunch of slides today, so I'm not crazy. But if you buy Ethernet circuits from Granite today, you have this technology deployed, which means, Sudhir mentioned earlier, you can do a click button solution to test this out. I guarantee if you are an enterprise retailer, you most likely do service with Granite. 9 out of 10 of the top retailers in the country do service with us. So they buy Ethernet circuits from us. That means you have a Granite FlexEdge deployed that's capable of running Juniper. So if you have switches and APs today, like most of you do, you can click the button, the edge is already there, and you can try out the SD-WAN. Some of you might have hundreds of locations deployed with us. I know a lot of you are network folks. Just check with your telecom team, and they'll tell you, hey, yes, we do business with Granite. They can get you in contact. We'll work with your local account management team to enable the trials and actually figure out if it's a good fit for you. So day 0 to us is design, of course, but we do a few different things. We work with AT&T, T-Mobile, Sprint, Rogers, et cetera, Bell up in Canada, and we do SIM stuffing. So when the devices come into us, we're already stuffed with the SIMs that we want to deploy for our customers. That reduces time in the factory here in the US before we can deploy it out to the customer. We use a co-developed blaster solution that we worked with the Juniper team to make. It allows our logistics folks to just plug in the appliance, and it pulls down all the configuration information. Because again, we are plugging into the NID, plugging into the Ethernet circuit, I apologize, and that is a static IP, so that's something that we have to do locally before it goes out, but we don't want engineers having to do that. So we're blasting these, we're shipping 500 a week out to our customers. We utilize pre-qualification tools, and this is where we first start talking about APIs. Everything that we do as a company is API or AI driven. We are done having people do manual tasks. We want to support our customers, so you're supporting your customers as in the business. We also want to support our internal employees. We want to make it easy for them to support their customers. So readying the site for us is often more than just buying boxes, switches, and APs. It's procuring circuits, Ethernet circuits, broadband circuits, and making sure that, 1, we know it's going to be available. 2, we manage the installation so they get on site at the right time so we don't get into double billing issues. Most importantly is our day 1. So we've developed an in-house solution that allows us to manage 3,000 to 5,000 installs a week for our customers. We call it our automation orchestration platform. It's a low-code platform that allows our users to say, hey, as long as you know if something happens, I want this to happen, you can utilize this application, you don't have to know how to code, and you can actually go in and develop the whole on-site workflow for the technician. So when they get there, they don't need a piece of paper to tell them what to do. They're going to interface with that application, give that application feedback, and get instructions on what to do next. So we developed that because we had a problem statement of we need to turn 150 sites up a day, full stack SD-WAN for a particular customer because we committed to doing 3,000 in 3 months. How are we going to do that without having the technicians call into engineers and work with our engineers to actually turn the sites up and run their test plan, which was very intense, right? They wanted to talk to not only a speed test, but they wanted to talk to end applications and interface with those applications to say, is this working? Is it the right latency? How do we do that, but make it easy for the technician? Because right, if you have your end users, technicians on site, they want them out of there as quickly as possible. It's interrupting their business, so we want to minimize time on site. Our goal is to make sure a technician never has to open their laptop when they get on site. Everything should be clickable through an application and should walk them through the installation. So everything is API driven. When you plug in the Edge appliance, it runs a speed test. It checks the SD-WAN overlay. It checks its ability to talk to and transact with end applications, whether they're on the internet or within the network. In doing this, with this particular customer, this is real data, our first deployments were 2 hours and 37 minutes on site, and we got it down to 39 minutes on site once we got in past the 1,000+ locations. And a 93% success rate every time we dispatched. That includes installing a wireline circuit, a wireless circuit, an SD-WAN appliance, a switch, and an AP, and then running through that test flow. So the technician literally just clicks button on their phone, they get green or red. If it's red, it'll give them the next steps on what they need to do, up to and including getting an automated call into them saying, I understand you're having trouble, how can I help? Day 2 services, we call it our Granite Managed Service Engine. When we see an event, we talked about 90% are resolved by the Juniper Mist solution. The other 10% needs manual intervention to resolve. How do we want that to happen? Well, if we identify that a cable has an issue and we want to dispatch a technician, why should you have to call us to do that? Why should we have to give that ticket to anybody internally to initiate that? So you have that ticket in ServiceNow, it's been generated. We interface with ServiceNow on an API level with almost all of our big customers. So the incident gets opened, automatically comes to us. We have APIs with our tech deployment system that basically will say, okay, it's a cable issue, it's located in this location, they're open from these hours, we're gonna dispatch a technician. That's all automatic. Oh, and by the way, it's not a cable issue, it's a switch issue. I need a different kind of technician sent. So we have profiles that are set up to say, hey, I don't need a cable guy with a ladder to come out. I need somebody with technical experience to come out. All of that's automated. We can submit a ticket automatically and get acceptance from a local technician in under 60 seconds for that job. That empowers our day 2 support team to not have to manually interface to do that. And then with ServiceNow, we match the customer's definition of scenarios to ours. So what's a P1? What's a P2? Someone mentioned today, we talked about the CEO. The CEO is having an issue. It's static on the line. Well, if you're in here, that's a priority 1 issue to you. So you can identify that as such. Hey, it's the MAC address of the CEO's laptop. Therefore, it's a trouble ticket affecting that. Automatically within our system, we will deploy a P1 event versus a typical P3 event for a static on the line. And we support this all via a technical support account management team that comes in every day and manages the health of your account. So last couple things, couple awards. With the Elevate Partner of the Year 2022 and the American MSP Partner of the Year 2022. I am out of time, so thank you very much. Sit here. Thank you, everybody.